Good morning, everybody. It is October 10th, 2022. And give me just a moment. Having some technical difficulties. Oh boy. One of these days I will get this whole thing down. Down like a science. All right. So, as is before, this is a Monday morning chat, and I leave the stream open. So, if anybody needs to be able to have a conversation or a talk in regards to your porn addiction or porn addiction recovery, you're free to just come on. We'll chat. You can either use the text chat or you can just turn your camera on. You can turn off the actual image and, just have it be your voice and we can have a conversation. If no one comes on this morning, I will go ahead and talk about anything I want to talk about, usually about the subjects of the prior week. Um, yeah, it's been quite interesting. Um, I've got a lot coming up in my life. Um, I've got some things that are going to be really important. That's going to be a next week thing for me that will put me on a good legal path, so to speak. So it's been on my mind. I have to admit, it's been dominating my mind. What else did we talk about this week? ADHD. I wanted to have a conversation about this. I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 40 or 41. It was a fairly recent thing. I just turned 50, so I know I don't look like I'm a 50-year-old man, but trust me, I am. But I turned 41 and I was having this problem where I constantly was like losing track of things. Like I'd lose my keys or I would lose something that was important or I'd lose track of time. I'd be working on something, and it's all work related now. And the process of remembering what I did or where I had to go seemed to get muddled or confused. At times, I completely lost track of things. So my keys would just disappear, and I'd spend 10 minutes looking for where I'd put them. Important appointments that were on my calendar for a day, I would like miss them, even though somebody had recently told me about them. So it should have been fresh in my mind, but I would forget them. After a while, after taking so many L's, I was just like, I have got to go get myself. I don't know what's going on with me, but something's not right. And I went ahead and got tested at a local psychiatric testing facility. And I went in there because I suspected. I had done a Google search at the time, and I was like, what does all this mean? And I saw something about ADHD, and I thought ADHD was just the hyperactive kid you had in the corner was just like, and not being able to track their stuff. And I thought that was all hyperactivity. Like people with ADHD are hyperactive little assholes that just need a head slap, right? That was my impression of ADHD. And what I didn't realize is it's actually a spectrum disorder. So there's and the spectrum for ADHD is inattentiveness on one side and hyperactivity on the other side. And what happened on the spectrum for me was that I was clear over on the inattentive side. And be honest with you, I probably had it my entire life. Probably had that in my entire life. It's just that at certain times it got really, really bad. And that particular year, it got really bad. I was missing everything, and I found it personally frustrating that I couldn't track what was going on. So the testing process was brutal, man. It was like 4 hours, and it was a series of cognitive tests, a series of written tests, and some reflexive tests where they have you just trying to track dots on a screen and doing some other things. I think one of the most key elements that made me feel really insecure when they were testing me was it was pretty simple. They had me sit in a chair inside of this room, and the therapist came in and said, "Look around this room, and I'm going to point out specific things, and I want you to remember the thing I pointed out to you." Okay, that seems easy. And went like maybe 12 or 14 things. And then she stopped and she looked at me. She's like, "Now repeat them back to me, but don't look at them. Just repeat back what you saw." And I think I got to three and I forgot everything else. And what that was evidence of was that my short term memory was not very good. I couldn't remember things for a long period of time, which you have to understand in the job that I was in, I have to remember things all the time, really complex things. I have to remember complex things all the time. But what that started doing was it started opening up the door for me to recognize um, what it means to have memory and the level of effort it takes to have memory. So for short-term memory, things get stored in this area of your brain that's basically it's like a dumping ground for information. And people have varying degrees of short-term memory, but it takes effort for short-term memory to get over to long-term memory. And with my short-term memory, if I didn't keep utilizing that and really keep repeating things over and over, it wouldn't get stored to long-term memory at all. It'd just be like things would just go away. And even when I was in high school and college, I had a bit of an inferior. I kept it to myself. I never said anything. I always assumed that I was a pretty smart person, but I didn't feel like it because I had to work so damn hard, and it seemed like easy for other people to be able to memorize things and to take a test. And I felt wise. Like I felt like I had information inside of me to be able to make, I think, what I would consider to be reasonable conclusions on things. But I had to work so damn hard to get through classes and that sort of thing. And it was exhausting. It really was exhausting. And I was like, I would constantly tell myself, man, maybe I really am stupid. And that's my father's voice inside of me. It's like, yeah, maybe I really am stupid. Um, and that was a very difficult thing, but that entire time I was likely struggling with ADHD. And back in the 80s, man, people it just wasn't they didn't go through this level of effort. The only reason they knew that you were hyperactive is if you were like jumping around in a corner. But the inattentive kid, they just assumed that you were slow or just stupid, that there was no test for that. So it all started coming together. I started realizing that I had ADHD. Now, why am I on this channel talking about ADHD? Was because with ADHD comes a host of other things that are problematic, especially when you get into video game playing, um, gambling, or porn addiction. These so-called behavioral addictions. When we talk about if you go to any of the premier websites that talk about porn addiction, we recognize that there is the constant use is a dopamine problem. It's a problem of dopamine production inside of your brain, and that repeating this activity over and over again is going to cause um, the production of dopamine so that you start experiencing more cravings around a particular habit, in this case pornography. And in my case, because I'm on the inattentive side of ADHD, there is a dopamine problem that I produce too little dopamine to keep up my enthusiasm. And as a result, it also affects the ability to imprint memories inside of your brain. So I was having difficulty on my short term memory for being able to retain things. But as you know, my whole teenage all the way up into my adult youth was spent, masturbating to pornography. One, I remember during my ADHD testing, one of the things that they had asked me directly that I lied on is they said, "Well, do you use pornography?" And I said, "Well, maybe maybe once in a while," which was a direct lie. I probably used it like 5 times that day. Um, but I assumed that they were asking that for a specific reason because they're trying to get a handle on, what it was like for me and, you know, if there were any qualifying behaviors that might be impacting my psychological profile. And the answer probably was yes. It didn't really matter though because passing the test, it clearly showed me that, and I'm not just ADHD, I'm way HD. I was like well within the spectrum. So um, yeah, back to the point, if you have ADHD and you're going into, to these behavioral based activities that can be very addictive, you're literally going in with one hand tied behind your back, and you're not going to have the strength to really act against this behavior once it starts becoming habit, because the cravings are going to be freaking intense and you've already got a dopamine problem and you're going in crippled. You are going in crippled. And for me, that's another checkbox, another reason why I shouldn't be, engaged in those behaviors because um, I'm crippled already. Um, it's one thing to say that you're an addict. It's another thing to say that I have a psychologically crippling behavior that can contribute to all of these other addictive behaviors in my life. Um, I stay away from gambling like crazy, and I I know I've known this my entire life. Like I knew that if I got into the gaming aspect of into gambling, that I would probably be a total junkie. Like, I'd probably wreck my life. And I'm way too smart about money to not be there. So I just avoided it like the plague. Um, I've done, lots of gaming in my life. I was an early gamer, man. Like, I went from Atari 400, like having every single Atari game when I was a kid, to having like the first, IBM compatible PC. And just, I was, when Doom first came out, I was playing that. Quake, I was playing all those early games, man. And I loved that crap. I used to brag to my niece and nephew that I could go straight overnight without sleeping and just play video games all the time. And that's the hallmark. That's a hallmark of having an addictive personality, but it's also the hallmark of, you know, these person like me, a person with ADHD should not be gaming. No, man, stay away from that shit. It's gonna suck you into a hole. And the other habit with ADHD is you lose track of time. And you've heard me on my videos. If you haven't heard me on my videos, go back to my homepage and listen to some of those where I talk about the me losing track of time. And I would be out surfing porn like 8, 10, 12 hours, sometimes getting a couple of hours before I have to go to work. That's a terrible experience. So I implore you, if you are diagnosed with ADHD, or even if you ex- suspect you may have ADHD, and there's tons of tests online. There's online tests that you can take that will indicate whether or not you should perhaps get professional help. You should at least try taking one of those tests, and to see if you fall within the spectrum, because that'll tell you if you might qualify for going for the additional deep dive. Um, and the deep dive exam will be a 3 to 4 hour thing. Um, anyway, that's my talk on ADHD, and I'm hoping at least one person who hears this who happens to have ADHD might be able to reflect a bit on that. And you can always, um, you know, subscribe to me. Go up to my go up to my profile. You'll also find my Twitter on there. You can email me. My email account's out there, and I always check my email, and I'll always respond to anybody who's looking for assistance. Oh, there is this article. This is another thing we can talk about this morning. There was an article that was posted on Psychology Today. Let me see if I can find it. Um, this guy, man, give me a second. I should have had this article pulled up. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, it was recent. Oh, brother. You can never find that one thing you really. I should have kept the link up there and I deleted it. Why did I do that? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, let me just read the one part that I have. I wanted to give credit to the author. Um, these dangerous concepts are, and this is under the title of porn addiction. These dangerous concepts are considered mainstream by therapists who have limited knowledge about sex. Clients who use a lot of porn, almost entirely men, or go by sex workers, are often considered addicts who need to be in lifelong recovery. Most therapists don't have a model or I'm sorry, most therapists don't have a model of porn addiction use or visiting sex workers that imagines a guy making a rational choice or loving his partner. And when a woman busts a guy for watching porn, most therapists don't talk about why she finds the porn watching so upsetting or the fact that they don't have a non-porn agreement when they've coupled up. Rather, the question is typically, how do we get this guy to stop his disgusting habit? And some of you out there, and there was even a part of me that could see that he was trying to get to an argument that a person comes in for therapy to a therapist, and the first argument is that a lot of therapists aren't trained on you know the principles of sexual compulsion and don't have a working model, so they'll go ahead and based on what he's saying here, they'll classify them as a sex addict or a porn addict. The whole implication is that there's a moralistic judgment going on here about what's going on inside of the man's mind. Um, the second thing is that I don't know if you catch it. He's throwing every single sex or porn addiction model under the bus. He's literally throwing that under the bus. He's implying that said models, if they exist, are moralistic. Ergo, we're not getting to the bottom of any real problem. And the working or rational assumption is that, why are we throwing that person under the bus when why is the wife so mad or why is the partner so mad in the first place because this person is doing this thing? Look, I'm not making any moralistic a judgment here on anyone's behalf. If you happen to be religious and you want to, make moralistic judgments about the use of pornography, fine. I'm not stopping you, right? I personally, am more on that sex positive side. Like I don't see that sex is necessarily a harmful thing, but if you come into a committed relationship, and there's boundaries that have been assumed or implied through that relationship, and you guys didn't talk it out, that's one thing. But if, on the other hand, if they were both known to you, um, then that's not really the issue. The issue is that there's compulsion and the person can't get out of it, right? That's the real issue. And that's what this article fails to address. And I hate that for it. It's like he threw sex addiction models under the bus without getting to a rationalization that says, well, this is a complex matter. I mean, not only do you have what's going on the spouse's mind, but what behaviors was this person doing that were harmful? And isn't that the purpose of therapy in the first place? Right? Um, yeah. So I've got some problems. I've got major problems with this article. And it got posted in Psychology Today. It makes my head hurt. And outside of the straw man that this is, I I reflect on the fact that there's somebody that's out there reading this that's probably shaking their head, right, in agreement. It's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, that spouse, man, what the hell's their problem?" It's like, and that gets me back to thinking about my own, um, you know, working inside of a program and recognizing, um, all the all the ways that my brain would try to conceive of excuses or to put up barriers to say that, you know what, the thing that I'm doing is okay. The thing that I'm doing is not a problem. Everybody else has the problem, right? That's a rationalization. You are rationalizing other problems. And this article gets to a way of somebody being able to rationalize their harmful or their destructive behavior, right? Um, and that's the real issue. Is your behavior destructive? If the answer is yes, then that's what the purpose of recovery is to get you out of doing that harmful or irrational, destructive behavior. Let's see if anybody's online. Sorry, I've been yapping here this whole time. Oh, I see Jay Aaron. Pardon my so yeah, that was a good question. He was asking me like what step am I in? I when it comes to the 12 steps, I have been working within a 12-step program for 5 years. Um, I was on a speed track. So the second I came into the program, I met my sponsor, and my sponsor was gung ho, and I was gung ho. And because at that time, I didn't have a job anymore. I had lost my job because of my addiction and because of the legal consequences of what I did. I had nothing but time on my hands. A lot of people who I've worked with and who come into programs like the program that I was in, they're so hard up that they actually pay lots of money to go through a professional clinic, and there's lots of good ones that are out there. Man, I was broke. I didn't have anything. So uh, I'll get back to that in just a second. Let me finish my thought, and I'll get to that one. So yeah. So I jumped right into the 12-step program, and I did that mercilessly. My sponsor and I, 3 days a week, we were meeting each other, and thank God for this man. This man sacrificed his time. We would go to a local Panera Bread, and we'd sit in the back, and I had my book out. As a matter of fact, do I have it here? No, I don't have it here. Next time around, I'll have it near my computer. I'd have my workbook, and we would go over things together, and I'd read back all the work I did. So it was like a crash course. It's like I was taking a master's degree program in the 12 step, and I was at it constantly. And I would call him a lot, and he must have spent, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 hours with me that year. And I got through the 12 steps. I got through the 12 steps um, before I even got into my criminal because I had to go in front of a judge. I was through my 12 steps, and I had my entire 12-step support group show up at my disposition, so it was pretty cool. Um, let's say let me get up to. Whew. Good morning, everybody. Uh, CR7 was talking about what the things relieve stress like yoga. Oh, relieve stress. Yeah. So like relieving stress. I was using yoga. I leaned on yoga a lot. The funny thing is, I had never used yoga. I thought it was some hippie bullshit, man. Before actually got into recovery, and my brother-in-law said something interesting to me. He was like, "Man, all this crap that you thought that was nonsense, maybe it's time that you just you just stop. You just stop with all the preconceived notions and you just try things out." And he was telling me about his experiences when he was in AA, and I was like, "Yeah, you know what? Maybe I will." And that's exactly what I did. I just parked it and started doing yoga. And I tell you what, man, especially when you get early into yoga and you finally get, because it was frustrating for me at first. It was frustrating because I wasn't feeling relaxed. And the more I put myself into the practice, the more I recognized that, okay, I got to force myself into this state. And then once I could get that sense of serenity, it was like, oh man. And then you start getting hooked on it. You don't want to stop. But it really was a process. And I tell people all the time, it's like, man, if you get into yoga or meditation, and yeah, meditation is the other thing I do on a regular basis. If you get into yoga or meditation, don't expect it to be like this, serenity type of, bullshit. It's actually a lot of hard work. You will at some point feel a serene nature about you. But the entire practice, it's a practice. It's supposed to be difficult. It's like lifting weights, man. You go through this and it carries through the rest of the day. That's the cool part about it. It's like you can switch that mentality on once you've started getting good at it. Something's pissing you off, somebody's in your face, you just bring it back inside of you and you start, you get back into that mindfulness state. And then all of a sudden, no matter how extreme things are that are in your face, you'll be like, all right. And then it just fills you, man. And it's a wonderful thing. I can't imagine not having that in my life because I'm a pretty intense dude. Um, See, can you elaborate on your spiritual awakening? What did you choose, and aka Buddhism, Christianity? Um, you know, I I had a lot of different spiritual influences in my life, and I was pretty hardcore atheist before all of this, and I still believe in the really old universe and crap like that. I was raised a Christian. I was actually I'll share it with you guys. I was raised a Lutheran. But around 13 or 14, man, I started casting that sense of spirituality away in my life. And it was more of like a rationalization thing than anything. I started picking things apart and I couldn't rectify it inside of my mind. So I just tossed it away like it didn't mean anything to me. Um, I would say that, and this is before I got into recovery. Uh, Before I got into recovery, I was really um, starting to contemplate things on a much deeper level. I mean, a much deeper level. Um, I started. I don't think you can get through this life trying to rationalize everything away. I think your mind has to be open up to. I'm not saying the impossible, but sometimes the fantastic. And it was encouraging. I remember when I was reading Russell Brand. He's got a fantastic book on his addictions. It's well worth the read, actually, if you're in a 12-step program. And I remember when I started reading the early chapters on that I was like, "Holy crap, Russell and I got something similar on this." And I started going to a couple of different meditation centers. I was reading Buddhism. Um, I was reading Buddhist material for a little while. As a matter of fact, one of the early 12-step books I was reading was the Zen, what's it called? The Zen of the 12 Steps, I think. I have to go back and try to see if I can find the title. That was actually a really good book. Um, and so Zen kind of appealed to me, but I don't have any specific hardcore camp that I'm in. I I do a lot of meditation. I have been inside of yoga like crazy. I was attending a couple of um, I don't want to call them churches. They're more like congregations. I was attending a few congregations that were very open. Um, but I've really gotten down to that the my religious principles have to be set inside of me, and I've been doing a lot of reading and understanding of different sorts of spiritual guides. So I'm very open right now. I am not hardcore. And another thing I wanted to add to that is when I started reading Carl Jung, and I've talked about this before. When I started reading Carl Jung and uh, his nature of spirituality, right, and it's really reflected in Bill W. When he formed Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, he was really talking about the spirituality that affects you and how you have to be able to reach deep down inside and be able to build a better you. They call that individuation, right? And I really, really appreciated that. Carl Jung was so freaking smart, man. And when every time I read his stuff, I'm just blown away by it. Um, that man had a really good understanding, I think, of like the nature of like religion and how spirituality can be a process for you reaching into yourself and trying to build a better you. And I so understood that, and that's why I lean so hard into spirituality as a form of it's the backbone of what we do in 12-step programs. It really is. Um, what do you think about NoFap and semen retention? That's from CR7. Um, you know, I have mixed feeling. I'm completely honest on it. I have mixed feelings about NoFap because it's really good that guys get together. Well, I got to stop saying guys. It mostly is guys, but there's a lot. I've got a few women sponsees, so um, it's really good that people get together and we talk about this. I can't criticize that at all. One of the things that I recognize about NoFap compared to like a 12-step program is that the 12-step program has some rigidity to it. Like there's a structure and a way that you have to do things. Now, I'm not saying 12-step isn't without its problems, but comparing 12-step to NoFap, um, NoFap, there's like no rigidity to almost anything that's done inside of that. It's literally guys getting together and having the conversation. And sometimes you can get a lot of bullshit. You can get a lot of stuff out there that you know ideas get thrown out into the hodgepodge, and there's no capability of being able to other than people firing back. It's open chaos, man. So like you can get some stuff out there um, that doesn't suffer the consequence of having analysis done to it, or and that's where I'm really at. It's like sometimes I'll see stuff out there, especially when it comes to like superpowers and crap like that. I've read early on. This was like years back. I started reading some of that. I was like, dude, really? God, guys, just calm down. Can we just be a little rational? It makes me. I try to. I still try to keep my foot in a no fap space. But um, I want to be with people who have a structure and a rationale for doing things. And there's been some analysis and some reason ongoing things. I see it, it incites the skeptic inside of me. I'll leave it at that. I don't have any knowledge of semen retention. I really don't. So it's uh, I don't even know what a junkin is. You might have to post a Urban Dictionary link for me, man. Sorry. I don't. How are we doing, guys? Oh man, we're already at the 9:30 mark. Hey, congrats, CR7, man. 120 days, man. That is amazing. And he's like not even like he says strict up semen retention. And when see people say semen retention for me, I there's this. there's this aspect of it is like the actual retention of semen, and what I'm more concerned about the neurological thing. Like that's my biggest thing. When you have an orgasm, that's the point at which the dopamine is being kicked off. And neurologically, whatever you are doing at that specific point in time, that's the thing that's going to imprint cravings and memories and all the things that come along with the production of dopamine. Um, and that's the most important thing for me. It's like neurologically, you're doing something that's going to cause an association. You've created motivation by doing whatever that activity was. So, staying clean and sober off of sex in general for 90 days, I think is absolutely essential. Like that is wiping the palate clean. Um, Alan Jack here. Oh yeah, thanks. I do appreciate it, and thank you guys for coming on. I think this is swipe number 3 for me. This is the third chat we've had, and I'm gonna keep it going. I did promise myself I gotta wrap this one up today, just because my wife has the day off, so we're gonna go spend some beautiful fall weather here, and I'm gonna go spend some time with her this morning. So, oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I said Jungin. It's a youngin. Oh, I am not bright, am I? Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you having the time. And hey, if you guys want to come on, if you want to fire up your camera or whatever and have a conversation, that's what I'm trying to go to. I mean, me yapping for half an hour is all right, but if y'all want to come on and just have a conversation, feel free to kick on your camera. And maybe I'm going to do this every single Monday, so you're all welcome to come back and talk about whatever you want to talk about. I do have to get going though, so thank you everybody for coming on and stay on that road to recovery. Stay strong, fellas.